Welcome back, YouTube, for a quick movie review by Nick on my channel, Graph Tanker 98. So I just got back from the theater. I went to go see Captive State. So Captive State, I considered it more of a sci-fi, maybe just a sci-fi spy insurgency movie. I didn't really know what to make of it. Starring John Goodman and Ashton Sanders, pretty much the two main characters. John Goodman is a collaborator, federal agent, secret police agent, chief, working for the aliens. So what happens is the aliens invade Earth. You kind of get that all in the first 5 minutes of the movie. Aliens invaded. Earth forces came together and pretty much said, "Hey, we're not gonna be able to beat these guys," and all the governments pretty much surrendered at the same time to the aliens. They took over. They set up these compounds underground, and then that's where they'll run their operations out of. It's not really clear what their motives were in the beginning. It hints to it through the movie with what they want. Just like most alien movies, they want our resources. The character played by Ashton Sanders was what's his dang name? He played. Hold up one second. Let me. So the character was. I had to look it up. I had some notes here. So Gabriel Dermond was the. Basically, what happens is him and his brother. It starts off. Their parents were. His dad was a cop, I guess, in the beginning of the invasion. You see that right in the beginning of the movie. I don't want to give away too much, but basically they're involved in a resistance. If you are gonna go watch this movie, just know that it's a slow kind of crawly spy thriller a little bit. It kind of just follows more so like an insurgency and a group of insurgents that are trying to fight back against these aliens. There's not really a whole lot to spoil in this movie. You kind of see it. There's also really just the big kind of. I won't give away the big kind of surprise at the end, but which is I wouldn't even. You can kind of see it coming, pretty halfway through the movie, but I won't really give it away, but. Yeah, so special effects are actually kind of good. I guess this was a low budget movie. The acting's actually good. It's just a little slow. It's sci-fi. If you're a sci-fi guy, you'll probably like this movie. If you like the thinking, I wouldn't call this movie that in depth per se. Like it caught not like an Interstellar or a different kind of movie like that, but. It has a. It was hard to put my finger on it when I was watching this movie. It felt like a high budget sci-fi movie of the week type thing. It seemed like it was just good enough to make it into theaters. I think John Goodman being in it is pretty much what got this movie into theaters. He is probably the best part of this movie, honestly, the John Goodman character. He's running that district's secret police. It's cool because you kind of see the collaborator sense to it, has how the French collaborators during World War II. You hear those stories about those guys were going around and working for the Germans and rounding up, and then they had a resistance fighting against the Nazis and all that. They had that kind of vibe going, which is kind of cool. And the technology for humans is restricted, which is kind of cool how they played on that. I wouldn't say this movie was horrible. It wasn't horrible. It was decent. I've seen worse. I watched Captain Marvel last week, and that was not for what the standards we would expect for a Marvel movie. That was not a good movie. That would have been good, if Captain Marvel came out right after Iron Man, the first one, it would have been like, oh wow, blowing people's minds. But it wasn't that good. going back to this movie. I'm just kind of ranting here. If you like sci-fi, that's kind of more of a thinking man's sci-fi, you'll like this movie. I didn't think it was that bad. John Goodman is really good in it, actually. He played a pretty good bad guy, but a humanized bad guy. You know what I'm saying? You could tell that he wasn't all bad. He was just kind of doing what he got thrown into. I mean, you'll find out more. I don't want to ruin the story, but the other character, Gabriel, he's basically on his own little adventure, trying to, figure out what his place in this world, and he gets he gets all kind of intertwined into this resistance kind of movement, and then actually it was a little. I mean, I wouldn't say I was excited coming out the theater like, oh man, I'm gonna buy this or I'm gonna watch this again, but I wouldn't say it was a total waste of time. I give it a C plus if I'm giving it a letter grade. A C plus, just for the fact that I like sci-fi a lot. So I'd probably give it a little bit higher, maybe a B minus. I was expecting it to be worse. Honestly, I was expecting it to be a lot worse than it was, and I was slightly surprised that it was a watchable movie. Nothing's groundbreaking and spectacular. I liked how they kind of had the political system running, within the city, because it takes place in Chicago, I think, right? So it kind of has an interest. You don't really, there was one part in the movie that I thought was cool, that it almost seems like they're a offshore. The aliens give off a vibe of like an offshore mega company, because I don't want to give anything away, but it almost feels like they're they do this probably across the galaxy. They don't tell you that at all. I'm not giving anything away, but I'm just trying to brainstorm it a little bit with the aliens in this one. They're almost like a corporation. That's what they feel like. They probably jump planet to planet doing this, and I'm saying it almost seemed like they were, had already had a methodology and they've done it before. Obviously, they must have done it to different civilizations. Because I don't want to give anything away, but there's a part of this movie when they the resistance is doing some stuff, and things get a little out of hand for the secret police human guys, so they call in it almost was like the aliens call in their hitmen or whatever you want to call it. It was kind of like how you think of a mega corporation calls in their real heavy hitters to take out somebody or take care of some big issue, cleaner or whatever you want to call it. But it was kind of cool. So I don't know. This movie could have been a metaphor for a current takeover. Maybe it was a metaphor. They say in the news that corporations are taking over society and governments. Maybe it's something like that. The technocracy, isn't that what they call it in a lot of conspiracies? The technocracy is going to take over. Maybe it was like a metaphor for that. Because they have the really good tech. They have the monopoly and they control it, and the humans are just kind of getting the little tidbits of it. And I don't know, I thought that was kind of interesting. There's a lot of little interesting things in the movie I wish we could expand on. But yeah, I give it if the acting is really what, I'm not saying it's like stellar, super the best acting I've ever seen, but it's the acting was pretty good. I mean, believable. Like, you believe these are regular people that get thrust in this situation, and if that acting just was too cheesy, if it didn't come off good, the movie would have been ruined. This kind of movie really relies on the performances, because there's just not a whole lot of action going on. There's very little action. So don't go into this movie thinking there's like going to be a big old shootouts and resistance fights like Red Dawn style. There's none of that. Nothing like that at all. Yeah. So it reminded me of that movie. For some reason, I can't remember the name of that movie. Oh, it was a Cold War or spy tinker soldier Taylor Tinker Spy, whatever it's called, with Gary Oldman. You know how that anybody's I don't know if I said it right, but it felt like that. This one probably had more action. That movie was pretty cool, but it was boring. But it was interesting. Just that's what it felt like. Something like that, like a spy thriller, like a slow burn spy thriller with no action. That's what this kind of felt like, even though there was a little bit of action and tension. But overall, let me close this out. Overall, I thought this movie was pretty okay. Probably won't buy it. I'll wait for like a Netflix or something like that. If you're not big into sci-fi, definitely wait. Don't go watch this in theater. I don't know how well it's doing. I don't know how well it's going to do in the box office. I don't really. This movie doesn't spark, 100 million in my mind. But 100 million first opening weekend. The theater was like probably 6 people in there too, and this is Saturday night, so the theater was packed. I don't know what they were watching. Something else came out today. We'll have to look that up. Other than that, C+, B- movie. Performances were decent. I wouldn't say the story was that great, but there was interesting things within it. Was better than I thought going in. That's for sure. I thought it was gonna flop, be like a junk. I thought it was gonna be like a real cheesy sci-fi channel movie, but it ended up being pretty decent. And I would have liked to have seen more of the aliens jacking up the humans in the beginning. More of that. I would have liked to have seen more. Even if I know, granted, this movie, the point of it was not to have action-packed stuff going on. It was more of the thriller side. I get that, but I would have liked to have seen alien tech, a little more of it, than what they showed. They did show some stuff, but I would have just liked to have seen maybe more of the initial invasion, just a little bit more. Seen some ships, some planes, some fighter jets getting blown up, or tanks or something. I don't know, something like that. It would have been a little more interesting. Yeah, but other than that, it's pretty decent. C-. So that's about it. All right, thanks for watching.